WHGE 95.3 FM. Coming up, the Open Eye.
All right. Get my bag open.
We're ready.
Hey, Sherry, I see you, sister. All right.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, here ready to get your eye open, ready to get them started. And as we always start, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And that's what we do right here on the Open Eye. You know, it's something, and I can probably use this for a lot of people. I saw this Chinese guy say this about MAGA, whatever they are, maggots. And maggots these days, talking to you guys made me truly admire you. You guys have this confidence that comes from never being contaminated by any knowledge. Real talk. Hey, let me get my disclaimer out the way, and we'll get on with the show. Whoa. No feedback there. I got you. There it is.
The views and opinions expressed on Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right.
Okay. Let's get them started. I'm gonna start here. No. You know what? Let me tell you something. Something I've been carrying around for a minute in my notes. Let me get with that. I've been meaning to get with this. Okay. Considering what's going on, this is something, because we need to know our history. So we need to know how we got where we are, why we did what we did, and what have you. And I think one of the most significant events in African American history is the Great Migration. Now, why is that so significant? Well, let me explain to you as we go on. Okay, the Great Migration was the location of more than 6 million Black Americans from the rural South to the cities of the North, Midwest, and West from about 1916 to 1970. Driven from their homes by unsatisfactory economic opportunities and harsh segregationist laws, many Black Americans headed north where they took advantage of the need for industrial workers that arose during the First World War. During the Great Migration, Black people began to build a new place for themselves in public life, actively confronting racial prejudice as well as economic, political, and social challenges to create a Black urban culture that would exert enormous influence in the decades to come. Hey, Vaughn, Steve, I see y'all. All right. Now, Fed started in 1916, but actually I think that Blacks started migrating out of the South long before that, The reason I say that, of course, Delaware is a Southern enslaved state. Don't get it mixed, okay? I'm not exactly sure when, probably around late 1800s, early 1900s. My great-grandfather, according to our family stories, lived downstate in southern Delaware. And he was a man that would stand up to people. And you know, during those times, straightening your back could get your neck stretched. So his family strongly encouraged him to get out of southern Delaware, and he moved up to Wilmington. What caused the Great Migration? After the Civil War and the Reconstruction era, racial inequality persisted across the South during the 1870s, and the segregationist policies known as Jim Crow soon became the law of the land. Black Southerners were forced to make their living working the land due to black codes and the sharecropping system, which offered little in the way of economic opportunity, especially after crop damage resulting from the regional boll weevil infestation in the 1890s and early 1900s. Okay? And while the Ku Klux Klan had been officially dissolved in 1869, the KKK continued underground after that, and intimidation, violence, and lynching of Black Southerners were not uncommon practices in the Jim Crow South. KKK, domestic terrorist organization. They don't want to call it that, but it's still around. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, we did. Okay. Did you know, around 1916, when the Great Migration began, a factory wage in the urban North was typically 3 times more than what Black people could expect to make working the land in the rural South. Okay? Let me tell you something. Right now in the South, I think it's in Florida, because of the deportation threats by the Orange Disasters regime, many of the farms have lost their migrant workers. So they went to an employment agency and put out an ad that they had jobs. These jobs are like 10 hours a day. So Florida is hot. 80 degrees in Florida is not like 80 degrees in Delaware. Okay? It's tropical hot. 10 hours a day at $11 an hour. Get out of there, y'all. Yeah, so, well, the Great Migration begins. When World War I broke out in Europe in 1914, industrialized urban areas in the North, Midwest, and West faced a shortage of industrial laborers, as the war put an end to the steady tide of European immigration to the United States. With war production kicking into high gear, recruiters enticed Black Americans to come north, to the dismay of white Southerners. Black newspapers, particularly the widely read Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier, published advertisements touting the opportunities available in the cities of the North and West, along with first-person accounts of success. Life for migrants in the city. By the end of 1919, some scholars estimate that 1 million black people had left the South, usually traveling by train, boat, or bus. A smaller number had automobiles or even horse-drawn carts. In the decade between 1910 and 1920, the black population of major northern cities grew by large percentages, including New York City, 66%, Chicago, 148%, Philadelphia, 500%, Detroit, 611%. Many new arrivals found jobs in factories, slaughterhouses, and foundries, where working conditions were arduous and sometimes dangerous. Female migrants had a harder time finding work, spurring heated competition for domestic labor positions. Aside from competition for employment, there was also competition for living space in increasingly crowded cities. While segregation was not legalized in the North as it was in the South, racism and prejudice were nonetheless widespread. That's where it was up, Devour. After the U.S. Supreme Court declared racially based housing ordinances unconstitutional in 1917, some residential neighborhoods enacted covenants requiring white property owners to agree not to sell to black people. These would remain legal until the court struck them down in 1948. And of course, that didn't end the practice, okay? Because it still goes on right now. Don't get it mixed. Rising rents in segregated areas, plus a resurgence of KKK activity after 1915, worsened black and white relations across the country. The summer of 1919 began the greatest period of interracial strife in U.S. history at that time, including a disturbing wave of race riots. That's not described right. Okay, that's some BS. Let me go back here on this article. All right. Okay. KK activity after 1919 worsened black and white relations across the country. What relations? White supremacists. Bunch of goddamn racists. And then the summer of 1919 began the greatest period. No, the summer of 1919. The bloody summer of 1919. Where whites attacked blacks all over the country. These were not race riots. This was a war on black bodies. The most serious was the Chicago race riot of 1919. It lasted 13 days and that 38 people dead, 537 injured, and 1,000 black families without homes. The bloody summer of 1919. The impact of the Great Migration. As a result of housing tensions, many black residents ended up creating their own cities within big cities, fostering the growth of a new urban black culture. The most prominent example was Harlem in New York City, a formerly all-white neighborhood that by the 1920s housed some 200,000 people. And let us not forget about Tulsa. The black experience during the Great Migration became an important theme in the artistic movement, known first as the New Negro Movement and later as the Harlem Renaissance, which would have an enormous impact on the culture of the era. The Great Migration also began a new era of increasingly political activism among black Americans who, after being disenfranchised in the South, found a new place for themselves in public life in the cities of the North and the West. The Civil Rights Movement directly benefited from this activism. Black migration slowed considerably in the 1930s when the country sank into the Great Depression, but picked up again with the coming of World War II and the need for wartime production. But returning black soldiers found that the GI Bill didn't always promise the same post-war benefits for all. By the 1970s, when the Great Migration ended, its demographic impact was unmistakable. Whereas in 1900, 9 out of every 10 black Americans lived in the South. And 3 out of 4, out of every 4 lived on farms. By 1970, the South was home to only half of the country's black population, with only 20% living in the region's rural areas. Yeah, that's right. And Sister Sherry said black people also created the Harlem of the West in San Francisco. Okay, and that was known as San Francisco's Fillmore District. The Great Migration was famously captured in Isabel Wilkerson's The Warmth of Other Suns, the epic story of America's Great Migration. The Great Migration changed the face of America. And changed how we lived, changed our political structure. And of course, whites tried their damnedest to keep blacks from leaving the South. Because at first, during the Great Migration, in the first years of the Great Migration, whites in the South, in their mindset, it would get cold up north, and then the blacks would come running back down south. And when that didn't happen, they started getting worried. And so what they did was, if they caught you trying to leave, you get sent to jail. If they caught you on at the train depot or getting on the bus, it was crazy that many of our people had to sneak out of the South. The black newspapers like the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier, which encouraged blacks to move north, were actually outlawed, damned the First Amendment, because these papers were encouraging blacks to get out of that situation. So they were outlawing the papers. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, as we watch the fall and the destruction of the American empire, the decline of the American empire, you might want to consider migrating. And where are we going to migrate? We can't go no further north. We out of the South. No, you ain't. You south of Canada, you south. So you might want to start looking around where we can rebuild, where we can migrate. Don't leave out Africa. All right, all right. This is the Open Eye, WHGE 95.3 FM. All right, I'm Patrice Gibbs. This is the Open Eye. As we watch things go on, and the desire of the Orange Disasters regime to reinstate Jim Crow, but they don't just want to segregate, they want to reinstate Jim Crow. They want to be able to do things like, Jim Crow policies must come with Jim Crow language, for instance. Tennessee Republican Representative Diana Harshbarger referred to Texas Democrat Al Green, a 77-year-old man, as boy. Calling a grown black man boy is another way of calling him the N-word. And they want to be able to do that without the consequences that come with coming out your mouth crazy. This racist ass hussy. Yeah. Like I said, they don't just want to bring back segregation, you know, separation of the races and which we really don't mind. Tell you the real. We really, really don't mind. That's word. Peace and love, cuz I see you. That's word. We really don't mind. But like I said, they want to bring back Jim Crow. You know, during Jim Crow, and I mentioned this before, a white man could walk up in your house and take your belongings with little or no consequences. Okay? And of course, when those type of things did happen, you had black people like my great-grandfather that pop a cap up in your ass. Wasn't having it. And that's where we are now. Don't think you're going to roll up on us and roll over us. Like I said, that's why they don't want just Jim Crow. Okay? Now, they got this thing coming up called the SAVE Act. And now the SAVE Act, I think, is really aimed at white women that haven't been obedient. Because under the SAVE Act, your driver's license won't be enough to vote. You'll need one, a passport, which more of half Americans don't have. And it costs about $130. Okay. 2, a birth certificate with your current legal name. With your birth certificate, which nearly 70 million married women lack. Okay, if you got a birth certificate and it has it's not going to have your current legal name if you're married. These people are crazy. Or 3, you could have military service papers. Not a military ID with sensitive info. Okay? This is nothing but modern day Jim Crow. And what it does, it restricts access to the ballot box. Brother Jafar, a political party that wants to make it harder to vote is sending a clear message. They can't win on their ideals alone. You know, because if you think the orange disaster got in there without some shenanigans, you know, I mean, you got to consider this the most foul piece of human excrement to ever defile the position of president in this country and desecrate the Oval Office in America's 249-year history. Mm-hmm. And what do you think the founding fathers would have done? They would have already arrested him. They would have already arrested Donald Trump for treason. Powder and lead cost money. A rope can be reused. That's from Benjamin Franklin. Because, you know, the founding fathers, they didn't play that. They ain't have a problem popping a cap up in your ass. This might be apocryphal, but it's a story that Thomas Jefferson got in a duel with a man on the White House lawn and killed his ass for treason. Oh yeah, they'll string you up for that. Yes, sir. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. All right. I'm Patrice Gibbs right here on the Open Eye. And let me tell you, don't just tune in for me. All right. Some great shows on WHGE 95.3 FM. For instance, at 3 o'clock, the Wilmington Renaissance, with host Samantha Ghetto Songbird Hollins. It's a great show. Singer, guitarist, Samantha Hollins. Yeah. And at 5, I had Brother Alan Lawrence with the Weekend Review. And of course, every day, we have our illustrious leader with Black History Facts and Reflections with Harmon Carey, Dr. Harmon Carey. Mm-hmm. And it don't stop there, because on Sunday, I tuned in last week, it was pretty good. Everything Black with host Shanae Darby, also known as Ebony X, and Brother Hanif Salim. Tune in by all means. Sir. I deal with something else that's been going on. When I tell you about migrating, migrate where? Yeah. Y'all know what I say at the end of the show. Global African supremacy, baby. And who's bringing it? Who's bringing it? Yeah. Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré. All right. You know, they have tried to kill this man. We're up to, I think the count is at 20 attempts now. Mm-hmm. Burkina Faso's transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, is a personality that attracts a lot of attention and interest across Africa and beyond. He's particularly admired by young people who see him as the revolutionary leader that he is. Here's some facts about him. He is the youngest head of state. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is the youngest head of state in the world. He's younger than Ecuador President Daniel Noboa, the world's second youngest head of state. Mm-hmm. He's 36 years old. Now, he joined the Burkina Faso military in 2009 and rose through the ranks to become a captain in 2020. He was part of the UN peacekeeping force in Mali and later fought against insurgents in his country, earning him accolades. He seized power in a military coup in September 2020, toppling Colonel Paul-Henri Lumumba, a francophone. What's that mean? That means he kissed France's ass. That's basically what it means. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a military coup, it was a revolution. Touré's first foreign trip as head of state was to Mali, where he met military leader Colonel Assimi Gota. Mali and Nigeria are now Burkina Faso's closest allies, and the trio has since formed a bloc known as the Alliance of Sahel States. All right. The only African country Traoré has visited outside the AES, the Alliance of Sahel States, is Ghana, where he attended President John Mahama's inauguration early this year. While many head of states are frequently seen with their spouses and children in public, Traoré, because of the issue of wife and children, remains purely private. And well, it should be, because they're trying to kill him. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is, his accomplishments. I'm going to go over some of them here. Mm-hmm. President Ibrahim Traoré is proud to announce that Burkina Faso marks 5 months of uninterrupted electricity supply. The country has not experienced any power outages for 5 consecutive months, ensuring a continuous supply of electricity. I hear you, Sherry. We're going to get with that. This achievement has paved the way for a seamless transition to electric vehicles, providing users with the assurance of charging their cars at any time. Ibrahim Touré has brought economic and spiritual sovereignty to this African nation of Burkina Faso. And colonizers now have a problem. Didn't they say Africa was an S-hole? An ish-hole? What has he done? Free education. Free education through university. Free water and electricity. He's built 55 new modern hospitals. Free health care for birthing mothers and for the population across the board. New schools. Launching a locally manufactured electric car company. Africa's first tire company. He nationalized the solar power plant. He's investing in the nation's students, engineers, and entrepreneurs, and he kicked them goddamn French mining companies out. He nationalized local gold industries to benefit Burkina's citizens instead of foreign mining companies. And the list goes on. And it's a problem for those that want to continue to plunder Africa's vast resources. Just stay in your lane and drink some tea. This is not 1833. And all of Africa and the diaspora are standing with Captain Touré. He survived several coup attempts and plots in just 3 years in power. According to the country's defense minister, soldiers conspiring with terrorists destroying the presidential palace have been arrested. He stated that the plot was masterminded by 2 exile army officers currently living in the Ivory Coast. Oh, the imperialists are not sleeping. They're working around the clock to take Touré down. The coup attempt occurred on the same day the United States placed Burkina Faso on this level 4 do not travel advisory list. Think that's a coincidence? In the face of political instability and external accusations, the people of Burkina Faso have united in powerful demonstrations of solidarity, standing firmly behind their president after another failed coup attempt. Yeah, across the continent and the diaspora, Africans are rising to defend a new wave of leadership rooted in African pride, sovereignty, and justice. Powerful voices like Julius Malema, Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, Dr. Arikana Chihambore Kuro, and Joshua Mapunga has spoken out, passionately calling for unity and vigilance in the support of Touré and the people of Burkina Faso. And Sister Sherry said, I think the U.S. is going to put another hit on him because they're saying he's claiming the gold for himself or something like that. Yeah. And how do we know that? How do we know that Sister Sherry is right on that? Yes, indeed, those great leaders that I named. Well, we know that the U.S. is planning that because they had General Langley, U.S. General Langley, come out and say that made unfounded claims that Touré is using gold reserves for self-protection. using gold research. And you know what? I wouldn't have a problem if he was, considering that you tried to kill the man 20 goddamn times. Yeah. 20 times. General Michael Langley, head of the United States Africa Command, known as AFCOM. He appeared before the U.S. Senate and claimed that Burkina Faso is using the gold to protect himself. It's laughable how America insists on playing world police, dictating how Burkina Faso should manage its own resources. A country like the United States should learn to stay quiet when it comes to African affairs. This isn't the same America. Isn't it the same America that foiled assassination attempts on Kwame Nkrumah? The same America involved in the killing of Gaddafi? The same America that, along with Belgium and France, killed my namesake, Patrice? They're using the same playbook they used to eliminate African freedom fighters and anti-imperialists. This time, they're trying to bring down Toure. We urge the African Union to protect its own. But, I forgot the African Union is just another Western puppet. That's all the African Union is. Don't get it mixed. All right? We urge every African aware of what's going on. Use the media, rally behind Toure. It's the least we could do to help the brother. Yeah. And like I said, the United States, through AFRICOM, accused him of using the gold to protect himself. General Michael Langley. Michael Langley, for those of you who don't know, is a black man. He's a 4-star general. Mm-hmm. Took his name to the U.S. Senate. And like Sister Sherry said, a bootlicking general. Michael Langley, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Calling you a coon is too weak to describe the animosity that all black people should feel for your sorry bootlicking ass. Yeah, he's just following orders. Mm-hmm. How many, and Brother Vaughn, like Brother Vaughn told me, how many military people, those in the Trump regime, resign rather than sell out their people that had the character not to be a handkerchief head, bootlicker. Damn, Michael Langley, have you no shame? Have you no love for your people? Obviously not. And I want to know what you did to become a general, you son of a flea-bitten bitch. WHGE 95.3 FM. Open eye. All right. Patrice Gibbs here, your third eye optometrist on WHGE 95.3 FM. Mm-hmm. Well, here we go. I've been encouraging black people to homeschool. Not only because of these book-burning Nazi fools who hate diversity, equity, and inclusion, but because what can happen to students in school are students. It hasn't changed. The Orange Disaster's latest executive order promoting stricter school discipline discourages schools from considering racial disparities. The hell does that mean? Well, it encourages schools to be racist. As we know, the most oppressed student is the black male student. I saw a experiment where they showed a group of teachers, some black students. And among these students were a couple of white females, a couple of white males, and one black male student. And as they watched this video, they were asked to watch which student would be the troublemaker in class, which student was the problem. Now, all these students were well behaved. And every one of those teachers pointed out the black student, and some of those teachers were black females. They pointed out the black male student as a problem in the classroom, even though all these students were equally well behaved. Okay? And just Wednesday, the Orange Disaster signed executive orders purported to promote stricter school discipline. And what does that mean? Seriously, there's nothing in these orders that unambiguously states that constitute stricter school discipline. The only thing clear about the agenda behind the orders is almost the most predictable thing. It's more Trump's anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion propaganda. The executive orders target civil rights guidance from the Obama administration that Trump revoked during his first administration and Biden never formally restored. Some school leaders, teachers, and conservative education advocates blame the Obama-era guidance for deteriorating safety conditions in school, alleging that administrators let bad behavior slide rather than risk additional scrutiny. Yes, sir. You're absolutely right, you king. Sellouts. Alleging that administrators let bad... Now, they let bad behavior slide. Bad behavior by who? Because as we see, these safety officers have invaded many schools, especially schools that are predominantly black or have any black students in them. These safety officers are nothing but abusive, especially the black students, male and female. How many times have we seen these safety officers body slam students, turn the desk over? And now under this new executive order, which bans the use of disparate impact analysis in civil rights enforcement and threatens schools with consequences if they use racial discrimination and preferencing in school discipline. Under the Biden-Harris administration, schools were forced to consider equity and inclusion when imposing discipline. Okay? There is no evidence whatsoever that studying racially disproportionate disciplinary actions made schools less safe. Basically, what this comes down to is Trump derangement syndrome. He's dabbling in fascism. A government leader using government authority to forcibly stifle ideals. Okay, this government leader is very much a cornerstone of Hitler's guide to beating society into Nazi-esque submission. Okay? And there's an underlying message. Black kids are bad, and studying racial disparities mean they won't be punished for it. That is their underlying message. And it brings me back to what my mother taught, is that we need to desegregate the resources, not the students. That quality teachers turning out college-ready students. And when this desegregation joke came along, we lost thousands of black students who gave a damn. Here's a quote for you. I favor integration on buses and in all areas of public accommodation and travel. I am for equality. However, I think integration in our public schools is different. In that setting, you are dealing with one of the most important assets of the human mind, of the individual mind. White people view black people as inferior. A large percentage of them have a very low opinion of our race. People with such a low view of the black race cannot be given free rein and put in charge of the intellectual care and development of our boys and girls. Who said that? Dr. King. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs here. All right. I want to thank Brother Abdul Latif Hameen L for this. Brother Hameen. Right? This is a quote. Trust me, Afrophobia is a real disease. Unfortunately, many parents I approach about African rites of passage for their male children, I can feel them from the distrust. I can feel from them the distrust and fear they have about inculcating Afrocentricity to their children. It doesn't upset me none, because I understand their fears and where it comes from. As a reputable teacher, I can tell you that if I was only mentoring children in academics, it would be okay by the parent because of the respect I've earned in my discipline. My reputation is well known, and you're a great teacher. I'm careful not to expose Islam or Moorish science upon my students because that is my personal culture. But Afrocentricity, no, their fears are obvious and real. A lot of us dislike and fear ourselves because we are taught the insecurities and fears of other races have against blacks and Africans. So we shun our ancestral culture, spirituality, and ways only to adopt foreign philosophies and a culture that's against our bodies, souls, and spirits, and wonder why we are in the situations as a people we are in. So I've been talking about for years Afrophobia, have a term to go with it now. The irrational fear and loathing of all things African, particularly its spiritual philosophy and culture. Afrophobia. Many of our people suffer from that. African history did not begin, of course, with slavery. It began with royalty. For thousands of years, African societies were shaped by powerful kings, queens, and rulers who established some of the most advanced and prosperous civilizations in the world. Ancient Egypt, with its monumental pyramids and rich cultural heritage, served as one of the earliest examples of highly organized society governed by pharaohs. Similarly, the Mali Empire, where rulers like Mansa Musa created a flourishing trade network and became a center of learning and Islamic scholarship. The Kingdom of Great Zimbabwe stood as a testament to advanced engineering and architecture with its impressive stone structures and powerful monarchy. Across the continent, regions such as Ethiopia, Benin, Ghana, were ruled by influential kings and queens who built strong empires, developed complex societies, and contributed to a legacy of innovation and cultural richness. African royalty symbolized not just the leadership of powerful individuals, but the enduring strength and sophistication of African civilizations long before the narrative of slavery became dominant in historical discourse. Thanks, Sister Tracy, for this. We are the only people on the planet who are strongly encouraged to forget our history. No other people are repeatedly told, that happened in the past, get over it. It is becoming so intense that in many school districts, it's illegal to even breach our story. I'm saddened that too many of us are satisfied with the whitewashed, distorted, superficial, and lies that our rich history is replaced with. The impact on our youth who ultimately come into adulthood, as we have, is immeasurable. We are systematically and intentionally taught that we are inferior. We are taught that every science, discovery, invention, heroic act, humanitarian stories worth telling are white men. It does not take a sociologist or a psychologist to understand the profound impact of learning that no one like you contributed to humanity. Or if they did, their stories, all of them, can be compressed within 1 month in the year. Wake up, mighty Africa. Wake up, mighty Africans. Wake up. Because it is foolish to let your oppressor tell you that you should forget the oppression that they inflicted on you. And the statues on campus be watching me. Washington, Jefferson clocking me as if to say my time's up. But I don't run laps on tracks. I run laps around the scholars of tomorrow because their new school of thought are merely our history's borrowed. As from Brother M.K. Asante Jr. Yeah. Where we at here? All right. Now, here's the thing. Something that we need to take a close look at. Since Guy Garcia was snatched up off the street, deported, or sent to El Salvador, he's just one that we heard about. Okay? Now, the Trump administration, the Trump regime, the Orange Disaster regime, this week argued before the Supreme Court they have the right to arrest any person U.S. citizen or not for any reason and send them to a foreign prison anywhere without due process. And they are arguing that America's courts have no jurisdiction to stop them. Let that sink in. And listen to this quote. Terrible things are happening outside. Poor, helpless people are being dragged out of their homes. Families are torn apart. Children come home from school to find their parents have disappeared. That's a quote from Anne Frank in 1943 that's relevant right now. Stop saying they were deported. The people in El Salvador were not deported because deportation requires due process. They were captured against their will with no due process. You know what you call that? Kidnapping. And then they were taken against their will with no due process to a foreign country. You know what you call that? Human trafficking. And then they were put in a prison with no way to get out. Do you know what you call it? When you put people who aren't even given due process and therefore haven't been proven to commit a crime in a prison with no way to get out. It's called a concentration camp. And what I tell you about that prison in El Salvador. Okay, it never fills up, but no one's been released. That's what happens in a concentration camp. Because they're killing the prisoners. Wake up! WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist here. But an hour flies by. God bless them. Cut the crap. Racism is America's religion. And propaganda has been its greatest tool in practicing the subjugation and murder of black people. America was founded on racism, and it is embedded in American society with such fanatical fervor that is a factor in every stratum of the society's institutions. It's called indoctrination. Racism is America's true religion. Every white person is indoctrinated, that is, taught to hate and fear black people. Through school, through media, through the propaganda, they are taught black people are detrimental to society and worthy of death. When J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, the top cop in the country at that time, was asked what is the biggest threat to America, he didn't say crime. He didn't say the mafia. He didn't say drugs. He didn't say war. He said the unification of black people. Let that sink in. If you don't understand global white supremacy, everything else will confuse you. Brother Neely taught us that. Think is still legal. And stop calling global white supremacy the Illuminati. Stop making global white supremacy some spooky, all-powerful, insurmountable entity. It's not. Global white supremacy is a bunch of evil, psychotic white men who robbed and murdered their way to wealth and power. They are not insurmountable, and they can and must be destroyed. The thing is, the situation is becoming urgent before they destroy the world. White supremacy is a collective delusion that is supported by white academia and is reinforced by white perception of cosmology. Cosmology, the study of how the world and or universe came to be. White people have centered and omnipotentized themselves by consistently reinforcing the ideal through arts, literature, and theology that they are the ultimate purity and authority. That's nuts. Psychologically, white people suffer from a God complex that has made them into white superiority. That has been made into white superiority. And when you remove someone from a delusion of grandeur, when you remove somebody from their self-perception, they experience cognitive dissonance. And the brain perceives that as pain. This is the reason white tears exist, because they cannot fathom that they are not adored or ordained. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. All right. Thanks for joining us, for joining me. My brother is here in spirit. Hope you learned something today. I learned something before I got here. And as I always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. WHGE 95.3 FM. This has been The Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. All right. Yeah. I forgot to mention April 30th. April 30th, the African continent is going to come forward in support. They're going to peaceful march in support of Ibrahim Touré. Protect that man. He is our future. He is the future of global African supremacy. I'm Patrice Gibbs.